I finished recording an EP last year at home with nothing fancy, not going to a fancy studio or anything like that, and right now it's getting mixed, and in this video we're going to talk about 10 different lessons that I learned from that process so that hopefully you can avoid some of the pain points that, well, I failed to avoid the first time around. Let's talk about it. First lesson I learned, always test different keys and tempos with your vocals before you commit. Your recording experience is going to be really annoying if you record a song in the quote-unquote wrong key for your voice. Whether that be a little too high or a little too low, because that's something people don't think about. You can actually have it be too low, not meaning you can't hit the notes, they're too low, but it might be too low for your voice to belt a note in the right way to get the tone that you want, and it just kind of makes the melody fall flat. So don't just assume that you always want to try keys that are higher. Sometimes maybe the answer is lower, sometimes it's going to be higher, but make sure to test different keys and tempos, because once you've already sort of committed in the recording process and you've recorded guitars and all different things, you're not going to go back and be like, ugh, I recorded it at 112 beats per minute, but now I feel like it kind of drags a little bit. It's kind of almost hard to sing along because it just feels so draggy. 116 would have been perfect, or 118 would have been perfect. So I highly recommend test out the key. If you're a guitarist, just use a capo maybe, where you're testing out. Say you wrote it in C major, try C sharp major, try D major, and then try B major and B flat major. So try going up and down by at least 2 semitones with your keys. But also play it by ear. If you start in C major and then you do D major and you realize even that is really comfortable for me, then go even higher. Maybe the right key is actually E major and you were way off. Go by what's comfortable. Try to hit the point at which you're like, oh, this is way too high, and then hit the point where it's like, okay, this is too low. Somewhere in the middle is going to be where your right key is. Do the same thing for tempo. If you write it at 112, test by intervals of 4 at first. So try the tempo at 116 and then 120. And if you find out, hey, 120 feels kind of rushed, but 116 actually kind of feels like dragging now, even though I wrote it at 112. Maybe 118 is the perfect tempo for you. So be sure to test out the key and the beats per minute, because you really don't want to get too late in the recording process where you really don't want to go back. It will take too much time to go back. Just recording the vocal is more irritating than it has to be, and takes way longer than it has to because it's maybe a little too low or a little too high. Second lesson, record your MIDI tracks first and then test, or at least record some MIDI tracks first and then test. So when I say and then test, I mean the test we were just talking about, where you try different keys and different tempos. The reason to record MIDI first and not forms of audio, like say an electric guitar direct line in, or a bass direct line in, or a mic'd up acoustic guitar, is that with those tracks, if you record it in C major and then you realize, D major is actually right, you have to re-record those tracks. If you find out the tempo's even a little off, where you initially thought 112 beats per minute, but then you realize, nope, 116 is the right answer, then you're gonna have to re-record those tracks. And even for the testing, you may have to re-record those tracks, or just deal with the fact that you're trying to sing along with a really crappy sounding guitar or something. But if you record MIDI, because it's just information, you can just change the key and the tempo and it keeps the performance otherwise exactly perfect. It's fine. So you can take your piano track that you recorded with MIDI and a keyboard, and you can just change the key from C major to D major, and it doesn't distort, it doesn't sound bad or anything, because it's just information. If you don't really know what MIDI is or what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Just skip this for now. Well, actually, no. Go find out what MIDI is. We don't have time in this video to talk about it, but essentially it's just recording information, like what note was hit and how hard, and then the virtual instrument plays what that would sound like instead of a literal audio recording. Third lesson, spend more time getting better and practicing first. It's really easy and really tempting when you have your studio at home or your recording software at home that you just sort of record until you get it right without even practicing before. Because why practice? You might as well practice while recording. But honestly, this can result in some sort of mental barriers, and you just start getting down on yourself where you're like, man, I can't even sing my own song. It's like, well, yeah, because you never learned to sing your own song, because the first time you ever sang your song was in the recording booth when the pressure is on. That's not a great way to learn. It's actually better to make sure that you are practicing, whether it be your vocals, your guitars, your pianos, whatever instruments they are. Practice them before you get into the booth or before you turn on that red light to record. Make sure you're practicing. because then you're going to be more confident when you first try to record. It's going to go better. You're probably going to not have as many mental blocks that get in the way where you're like, oh, I can't even play my own song. I can't even sing my own song. Set yourself up for success. Make sure you practice before you try to record. Lesson number 4, be really quick to commit to an edit or a recording. So often it's really easy to over-obsess with like what this one guitar track sounds like, and is it, right on the beat? Is it too perfect? Is it not perfect enough? And you over-obsess and you think, oh, what if I want to change my mind? And you're afraid to commit to anything. No, just commit. Probably you're not ever going to go back. And honestly, you kind of want to dissuade yourself from going back. Get it to be good enough and then move on. And hey, if you commit quickly, then if you do realize later in the recording process, no, that guitar needs to be redone. Okay, fine. Redo it. But that's not going to take that much time anyway, and it didn't take that much time the first time. So don't spend like 5 hours obsessing over getting one guitar track perfect. That may not even be an important track at the end of the day, and it might have been more than good enough after the first 30 minutes, and then the last 6.5 hours were kind of just for nothing. It would be better to just commit, move on, and then if you really find out it wasn't good enough, go back and just redo it. Lesson number 5, take breaks and let it breathe. Sometimes you just want to keep doubling down, and if you're failing or your voice isn't on that day or your guitar chops aren't on that day, you just want to keep pushing and be like, no, I gotta get this right, I gotta get this right. But very often, if you just leave it alone, come back the next day, maybe take a day break, and then come back to it 2 days from then, all of a sudden it works because you just got in your own head, and that's just a game we have to play with ourselves, right? Where we just need to play the psychological game with ourselves. Sometimes we just don't have it that day. Our voice is off. We were sick too recently. For whatever reason, we're distracted and our guitar playing isn't very good, or our fingers just are off that day. Don't over-obsess. Don't keep pushing. Just decide, you know what? I'll move on to something else. Or maybe I won't even record today. I'll give it a little break, let it breathe, and then I'll come back to it, and it probably will end up going much better. And I wouldn't have given myself some unnecessary psychological losses where I start to beat myself up like, oh, I can't even sing, or I can't even do whatever, which would have been totally avoidable if we just knew, okay, today's an off day. Let me just wait for tomorrow. Lesson number 6, and if there's one lesson that you adhere to from this, probably pick this one. Use semi-open back headphones when it comes to recording vocals. I've talked about this before, I'm gonna say it again. Maybe one of the most mind-blowing lessons I learned recently. I recorded a whole album with my band in college with closed back headphones. And I remember thinking, man, I feel like in all the choirs I've been in and the like vocal groups I've been in, nobody has ever been like, hey, you have pitch issues. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't have pitch issues. No, teachers pointed out nothing. But I kept having pitch issues when I was trying to sing for recording. And I thought, well, I don't think I'm more nervous for this than for a performance. Am I really this bad a singer? And the answer is no. But you will be if you have closed back headphones, because you're so used to hearing your own voice, not just in headphones, but just the natural sound of your voice, your bones vibrating or however it works. The whole thing that your voice sounds different to you when you sing versus when you hear yourself back. That's because what you hear back is actually what you sound like, but we're used to what we sound like in the context of being within our own body. Keeping all that in mind, when you have closed back headphones, you only hear yourself in this new strange recording way, and it's just not very natural, and you just tend to go pitchy. Immediately, almost all my pitch problems went away just by switching to semi-open back headphones. Don't go full open because then there will be too much bleed into the microphone, but with semi-open, there's a tiny bit of bleed. It's enough that during silent parts where you're not singing at all, yeah, it bleeds, but you're gonna cut that out anyway. Nobody would ever hear it. You don't have to worry about it. Very minor bleed that would never ever affect the final product, and it will just make you sing so much better. If you're having pitch issues, honestly, just do this and it might go away. Specifically, when I say this, I mean when you think, man, I nailed that take, and then you listen back and you're like, what? I was way off in pitch. That will stop happening. You'll at least know when you're off pitch, and it will be a more natural process, which is the same as live, right? Once in a while you're like, ooh, I missed that note by a little bit, but you at least knew it in the moment. You don't go back and listen and say, oh my gosh, I thought I crushed it, but turns out I suck. That will go away. That problem will be resolved just by switching to semi-open back headphones. Lesson number 7, do not assume that pitch is always the problem when your vocal just seems a little bit off, because a lot of times it might actually be the rhythm. Also, I should add that sometimes when it sounds like the pitch is the wrong part, it still can actually just be the rhythm. Just as an example, something I ran into kind of often for a little while, I think there was some latency maybe with my recording something, I don't know if it was the software or what it was, but there was enough latency that when I recorded, everything ended up being a little late, and a few times it just sounded like the pitch was really bad, but when I really listened to the vocal alone, I'm like, no, I think the pitch is pretty good actually. So what's wrong? And the answer was just those few milliseconds of the latency or whatever ended up making it sound pitchy, when really I just needed to move the vocal to probably the way I originally did it without the latency, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, it sounds good. It sounded like a pitch issue, but really it was a rhythm issue. In some cases I just recorded badly where I just had bad rhythm when I was singing, and in other cases there was just latency, so it was, the whole take was a little bit behind what it should be, and it actually sounded like a pitch issue when it wasn't. So don't always assume that it's a pitch issue. I feel like vocalists especially assume that all problems with your vocal is pitch. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's the way your intonation, it's the way that you sang it. Sometimes it's the rhythm. Even if it sounds like a pitch issue, it might not be. Lesson number 9, click tracks are the worst. Instead, make basic drum beats. Something that I've found is I just find it really hard to play to a click track. Not because I find it incredibly hard to play in tempo, although I do think that unless you're used to playing to a click track all the time or metronome all the time, probably most people are a little bit more fluctuating in their tempo than they realize they are, because often it is kind of musical to shift the tempo a little bit. But ignoring all that for a second, it is way easier to feel a song and play well and play inspired when you hear even a basic drum beat compared to hearing a click. A click is just so robotic, but just hearing the sound of real drums, even if it's like kick, snare, snare, kick, snare, snare, like that's super robotic theoretically, but there's something about drums that feels real that just will allow you probably to play better. At least for me, it makes a huge difference. Even if the drum loop I use is really silly and robotic and not that great, it's still worlds better than trying to record to a click track, which is totally soulless. I get better performances, and then you also win the psychological game because you don't start thinking, I suck at this, why can I not do this? Because instead you're playing the drums and you're getting better results. Idea number 10, set yourself up for success at every level. This probably should be an entire video by itself because there's a lot to talk about here, but essentially this just means think about your situation and set yourself up for success with the situation in the hand you have been dealt. So for instance, yes, of course it would be best if you have a violin part in your song for you to have $1 million studio and to have a really great violinist come in. But you might not know a really great violinist. You might not know anybody who plays violin at all. And you probably don't have $1 million studio that sounds great. So given your circumstances, what is the best way to get a good violin sound, or the best violin sound you can with your situation? Is it to be stubborn and decide, I'm not going to have a violin at all if I can't have $1 million studio and the best violin? No, just think about how to set yourself up for success. And if you do know somebody that kind of plays violin but not very well and your room sound sucks, honestly, you're probably best off just using a virtual instrument. You can play it with a keyboard, or you can just program it and then you can change it after, and you can essentially craft the perfect take of a violin, and never once did you worry about your room noise or getting the right performance out of somebody or getting somebody to come to your house or going to a studio. You don't have to worry about any of that. You are doing what's best in your scenario. Same thing's going to be true for things like electric guitar. Maybe it's true that the best overall way to get great electric guitar sound is a mic'd amp in $1 million studio. But if you don't have $1 million studio, maybe for you, and probably for you, and definitely for me, I will say, the best way for me to get guitar sounds is just direct line in and using amp software, where I get the amp from just software. They sound great now. And honestly, I'm not even sure that I buy that anybody can hear the difference, especially if you do it right and you have a decent amp software. But let's say that, oh, you can tell that it is a little bit better to have that $1 million studio and an amp that is mic'd. Okay, but you're probably gonna get 95% of the result much easier in your home if you just do direct line in. You don't have the $1 million studio. You don't maybe know how to mic an amp really well, have a terrible sounding room, your wife is going to be very upset at you for waking her up at midnight when you're recording. In your situation, it's probably best to do direct line in for electric guitar. So just think about this for all the things. How do I get the best results with the hand I've been dealt for recording acoustic guitar or piano or an organ or drums? The answer for all of us is probably going to be slightly different, although just as a quick rundown, I would say, look, do MIDI for everything that you can. Acoustic guitar, you do kind of have to use a mic because direct line in acoustic guitar sounds like crap. Of course, you have to mic your vocal. That one should be obvious. But electric guitar, bass guitar, those two direct line in works great. Then you don't worry about the room noise. How bad or good your room sound is totally irrelevant when you do that. There's great amp software out there that isn't that expensive either. So set yourself up for success. For the vast majority of us, it's doing MIDI for things like drums and pianos and lots of random instruments and sort of any synths or anything like that. Probably true for orchestral stuff as well. You want to have a flute, you want to have a violin, you want to have cellos, probably just a virtual instrument using MIDI. And then when it comes to electric guitar and bass, you probably want real electric guitar and real bass, but direct line in so the room doesn't affect it. Acoustic guitar, you're just going to have to mic the acoustic guitar. And vocal, well, of course, you're going to have to mic that. On the vocal, build a vocal booth if you can. Especially if you're handy at all. I'm not handy at all, and I did it. With a little bit of help at first, but I did the hard parts by myself. And again, I cannot emphasize, I'm like barely passable as a homeowner for handy. Just believe me. Whoever you are, you're almost certainly more handy than I am when it comes to these sort of things. And I built myself a vocal booth. It took like 3 months of working off and on weekends. Took a while, but totally worth it because I'm setting myself up for success. I can record vocals whenever, whether it's late at night, whether my wife's home or not. And also I know that the sound is isolated. So I'm not in my head about like, oh, if I screw up this note, the neighbor's gonna judge me or my wife's gonna be like, oh, not a great day for him, huh? That sort of stuff enters your head and it just affects your vocal performance. I love that I can go into that vocal booth, close the door, and I know nobody can hear me. I can do whatever crazy experiment or sound. I can really go for gold with that note and just not worry. I'm setting myself up for success. So really consider building a vocal booth. You can build an incredible one that really locks in all the sound for like $2-3 grand. And you may say, Joseph, just $2-3 grand? Yeah, I know. That's not a small amount of money. But if this is something you're going to do for the long haul, totally worth it. If you're 40 years old and you're going to be recording for the next 40 years, $3 grand to build a vocal booth once, that's going to, maybe you record an EP every single year. That's like 40 EPs. That's like 200 songs that you release over your life because you built a vocal booth. So just think about it. And you may be thinking, hey, this is great. If only I had songs that I actually wanted to release. Well, then I have the guide for you. 20 different ways to start writing a song. I think the best way to set yourself up for success for songs that you're actually proud of is to actually think about how to start your song and not take for granted, oh, I start with a chord progression with my guitar and I just do the same thing over and over again and then expect different results. Often the reason that you're sort of creatively dry and your songs might not be that inspiring to you is you keep starting the song the same way instead of trying something different, like starting with a bass line, or maybe writing the vocal melody first, or reverse engineering a song from a song title that you find really interesting and compelling. There's a bunch of different ways to start writing a song, so check out my free guide, 20 different ways to start writing a song at songwritertheory.com/free guide. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. Talk to you in the next one.